don't know about you, who else could it be but your man Lou? Yeah.
And overtime.
Who else could it be but me, your man, Louie T? Welcome to Monday Night Football Overtime. Vikings, Seahawks, as I've always stated to you very clearly and very concisely, never, ever bet against the Seattle Seahawks on primetime television at the crib. And you could honestly probably extrapolate that across home or away, but I tend to stick with them just at the crib, all right? But they've been on primetime television, what now, 3 times this year? Twice for sure. At San Francisco, won that game. On a Thursday night at home versus the Rams, won that game. And now at home on a Monday night, won that game. They're on the road at the Rams on Sunday night next week. I'm not saying, I'm just saying. And then they're going to flex that Week 17 matchup because I think that's going to be for the division in Seattle to Sunday Night Football to wrap up the season. So this is a team, you just don't bet against them on primetime television, especially when they're at the crib. And credit to the Minnesota Vikings because I thought this game was about to get out of control after they took a 17-point lead, a commanding 17-point lead at that, at 34-17. I thought this thing was going to get ugly. I felt another Kirk Cousins interception, one that would probably go for 6 the other way coming, or a Kirk Cousins fumble, scoop and score, and this thing was just going to snowball. But instead, he hits Laquan Treadwell on a 51-yarder. All of a sudden, it's a 10-point deficit with 12 minutes left. They're able to get a stop. The fake field goal happens. You're thinking, oh, shit, that damn, just the momentum they had coming, and now it's snatched away. They forced a fumble from DK Metcalf. They take that down the field. They get a touchdown out of that. Now it's a 3-point game, except Dan Bailey misses the extra point. And that's when I knew this ain't your night. When he missed that extra, because you weren't getting another touchdown. You just weren't going to do it. You had to be able to get in the field goal range and tie this game up. And with him missing that extra point, that's when I knew your luck just ran out. Uncle Mo was really comfortable on your sideline, chomping on some chips, sipping on some juice. And right there when you missed that extra point, Uncle Mo put his foot down in the recliner, got out of the chair, and started walking for the exits. It was over. So, valiant effort by Kirk Cousins to try to lead this team back for the second consecutive game. But this time, no dice as they fall short 34-30. Dalvin Cook was injured in this game. If I had to guess, and I didn't sleep at a Holiday Inn last night, so I can't confirm nor deny this. However, if I had to guess, I'd say he separated his shoulder. Now, if you were paying attention closely, you saw when the injury first happened. It first happened right before halftime on the play where it looked like he had fumbled the football. When Clowney came from behind and hit him, he got up grimacing, really favoring his shoulder. But they went to halftime after that. Remember, they got the field goal, went to halftime with a 7-point lead, 17-10. And we didn't hear anything else about it. And then you get the fumble. And when you watch the play, nothing really major happened on that play. It wasn't a lot of serious contact to his shoulder. Nobody really fell on him egregiously. It just looked like a guy that was trying to play through pain. And then he got hit on the arm. And it just probably popped out of place. And that was it. And if I had to guess, he has a sublux. We'll see. Again, I'm no doctor, and I didn't sleep at a Holiday Inn last night, so I don't want to make any. I don't want to speculate. Okay, but that's the guess I'm going to throw out there. I'm just going to throw that in the atmosphere. But we'll see. They'll give us a report. We'll find out more about his injury probably tomorrow. He'll get X-rays, all of that good stuff. Probably already had X-rays, and if they feel like they need to, they'll give him an MRI. But we'll see what happens. We'll find out more about his injury tomorrow. I talked about this Vikings defense. Remember, I got into a spirited debate with my man Black L.A.B. Talked about this Vikings defense and how they're just not the same Vikings defense we've been accustomed to. They give up 34 tonight, and I get it. Granted, not all of this is on the lap of the defense. It's not all in the lap of the defense. You get a Kirk Cousins interception in tailor-made field position for a touchdown, and the Seahawks took advantage of that. You also get the fumble by Dalvin Cook that leads to a field goal. So I get it. That's 10 points right there off of 2 turnovers. However, you still got to account for the other 24 points that was given up. You gave up a bomb for a touchdown on a miscommunication. You could not stop the run tonight to save your life. What's up with that? I mean, Chris Carson goes over 100, and I'd like to see Rashad Penny's numbers. As a matter of fact, I'm going to take a look at that right now because I'd venture to say that Rashad Penny probably had at least another 60 yards rushing his damn self. So 74 for Rashad Penny. So as a team, I'm not going to count Travis Homer's fake field goal into their total. So as a team, they rushed for 191 yards. You add in Travis Homer's 29 yarder, and it's 213 rushing yards on the afternoon or the evening. I'm not going to count that. So you're just going to go with the 191 yards rushing in this game by the Seattle Seahawks. It was a dominant performance on the ground, and they had no answer. So don't talk to me about this being an elite defense and this, that, and the third, and they're only giving up X amount of points per game. I know what I see, okay? This is not the Vikings defense of old. This is not the kind of defense that's going to shut down offenses that can score the football. That's not what they've been this season. That's not what they are. But when they play teams like the Redskins, like the Giants, okay, like the Eagles, teams that they can shut down, they've done that, all right? But when they've played teams that can score, and I've already went down the list of teams that can score, that they've played, that have played and played well against this Vikings football team defensively and scored points, not always in a victory, but they scored points, they've given it up. So for me, this is a Vikings team that I told you I wasn't convinced was a postseason team. I'm still not convinced quite yet, but they seem like they belong. When I look at the list and the landscape of the NFC postseason, they belong. All right. Now, I don't know if they're going to make it because you got the Rams sitting right there at 7-5 now, and all of a sudden they're back in the mix. They seem to got their mojo back last week. It was against the Cardinals. It was family business though on the road, and they handled it the way they were supposed to. Now you look up and you look around and you say, okay, what's Minnesota going to do to bounce back after this loss? And they got the Rams have the Seattle Seahawks, and they're looking to handle some family business next week. They're looking to exact a measure of revenge, and if they want to make the postseason, that's one they got to have. So that's a massive game, and a lot of these games down the stretch going to be massive games, especially in that particular division out west, because all of the teams are good, with the exception of Arizona. All of them are good, and so anytime you play inside the division, it's a big game. So the Vikings are going to play the Green Bay Packers here in a couple of weeks in Week 16 at home. That could be for the division. All right. They got the Lions again, and that's at home. And 3 out of their final 4 games are at the crib. So if you're Minnesota, just take care of home. You do that, and you'll probably win the NFC North division. If you can just take care of home, you will win that division. Should be interesting to see how both of these divisions finish up this season, because it'd be a damn shame if you're in San Francisco to play as well. It reminds me so much of the other West division in the AFC last year with the Chargers and the Chiefs. Both of those teams were exceptional. The Chiefs ended up going 13-3. The Chargers went 12-4, and they had to go on the road to Baltimore, where they ultimately won, but then lost the following week at New England. It's just crazy how you could win that many games and not get a home playoff game, but that's what ultimately is going to happen to one of these two teams in the NFC West, as someone's not going to win the division and someone's going to have to go on the road. And it's crazy because just like last year with the Chiefs and the Chargers, you went from potential, first round bye and a home playoff game when you come off that bye as a 1 or a 2 seed to, hey, you got to not only go on the road, but you're a 5th seed. You know what I mean? You got to play on the road in wild card weekend, and your path to the Super Bowl goes all the way on the road through 3 different destinations. That's tough, especially when you win 12 or 13 games as one of these two teams is probably going to do this season and not win the division. So Seattle now in first place at 10-2 with this win. And it's going to be really fascinating because now San Francisco's put themselves in a bind that they, and again, there's still 3 games between week 17 and now where Seattle could drop 2 out of 3 going into that game and San Francisco can win all 3. And all of a sudden they don't need week 17. They've already clinched the division, but that's highly unlikely. All right. And now you put yourself in a position where you got to go to Seattle on the road, and that's going to be prime time. I'm telling you, if that's for the division, it's on primetime television. They're flexing it to Sunday night. So now you put yourself in a position where you got to go to Seattle on primetime, which I never bet against these guys on primetime television, at home, and try to go win the division. Good luck. You're going to need it. But let's get back to this game. Let's talk about Seattle and what they were able to do. The dominance on the ground was so impressive. Now, let me start by saying this. Russell Wilson no longer in the discussion for MVP. All right. And he didn't play poorly tonight. I'm not saying it because he didn't play. He needed to go out and snatch up some votes tonight. He needed to go out and ball out of his gourd to try to make this thing a race. He did not do that. He just played well. He didn't play great. He played well enough for his team to win. However, he's not on the level of Lamar Jackson this year. I still think he should get some votes, though. It should not be a situation where no one else gets any first place votes but Lamar Jackson. I think Russell Wilson deserves to be in that conversation. He deserves to be your runner-up, but he's not where Lamar Jackson is right now. And so I think Lamar is slowly but surely running away with this thing and making this a non-issue. But back to the game. The run game was absolutely dominant and fun to watch. They've got a 2-headed monster back there of Chris Carson and Rashad Penny. Both of those guys looked extremely effective tonight, and they've been really good this season. Both of them have. Penny is starting to come on. Last week had the big game versus the Eagles, had the big touchdown run to put the game out of reach. He looked exceptional tonight, had the rushing touchdown, had the receiving touchdown. Chris Carson led the team in rushing tonight, over 100 yards. When they needed a big first down, when they needed a big play, he was the guy they called on, especially on that final drive where they needed to get that first down to pretty much bleed the clock. He was able to deliver for them there. Every third down and short they had tonight, for the most part, it was the back of Chris Carson that they rode, and he was more than willing, capable, and able to take care of the load tonight. He was outstanding. That offensive line, can't say enough. We used to give the Seattle Seahawks so much flack about their offensive line, how they can't pass protect, how they're not good enough up front at moving people off of the line of scrimmage and creating holes for the run game. Well, this is a group now that's starting to mesh and gel together. They've had some injuries up front. You see Joey Hunt inserted at center, taking over for Justin Britt, who got injured earlier in the season, and they haven't missed a beat. They're continuing to run the football effectively. Russell Wilson is in going play action fake, pushing the football down the field. We saw him hit David Moore for the touchdown tonight. And they're continuing to do what they've done all season, which is run the football to set up play action pass and take shots deep. DK Metcalf, despite the fumble, had a strong outing tonight. Again, he continues to play really well, and they still haven't really gotten Josh Gordon into the mix yet. Once they get him fully integrated into this offense, they could be that much more scarier. And there was absolutely zero Tyler Lockett tonight. I don't know if he even had a catch on the evening. So that goes to show you just how dynamic this team can be, where 2 of their better offensive weapons didn't have an impact. It was Jacob Hollister, it was DK Metcalf, and it was the ground game and a sprinkle of David Moore. And that's what they did tonight, and that's how they won this football game. And hats off to Schottenheimer and Pete Carroll and company for getting the job done. Real well executed game plan. They kept it on the ground. The Vikings had no answer for their run game. They were just more physical than them up front. You saw the statistic: 6 offensive linemen on the field for up over 30 snaps tonight. That was the highest amount of snaps any team in the league this season has had that many offensive linemen on the field. George Fant might as well have been a part of the offensive line tonight because he continuously was on the field and he was making a difference up front in the run game as they were able to really dominate and control the pace of this game on the ground. And then when Russell Wilson got opportunities, for the most part, he was able to take advantage as they get the win 34-30. Defensively, still a team that I'm not really sold on in the back end. That secondary is sketchy. They give up the big touchdown to Treadwell. I don't know what the hell happened there. Obviously, it's a busted coverage. Someone didn't do something they were supposed to do, but you can't give that up when you're up 17. Nothing cheap, nothing deep. You know the rules to the game, then play. And that, to me, set off a chain of events that made this a closer ball game than it needed to be. If they score that touchdown, but it takes them 6 minutes to do so, that's what you want. You want them to eat up as much of the fourth quarter clock, and instead of that touchdown being scored with 12 minutes left, it should have been scored with 6 minutes left, and then all of a sudden, we're not having this conversation right now. But instead, you give up an immediate touchdown. Now it's a 10-point game. You go 3 and out. You get the fake punt, which really helps you because that allowed the Seahawks to burn another 3 minutes off the clock. If not for that fake punt, then you're looking at a situation where they get the football back with 10 minutes. Instead, they got it back with 7 minutes after the DK Metcalf fumble. But again, they got the football. They moved it down the field. They changed tempo too. Give Kirk Cousins and that Vikings offense some credit. They changed tempos, and the Seahawks were not ready for that. And so, again, this is a defense that, for as good as this offense can be at times, I'm still very skeptical about this Seahawks defense. I thought they did a good job bottling up the run for the most part tonight. Where they struggle, and where they've struggled all season long, when they have struggled, is in that secondary, defending the pass. A really bad pass interference on Trey Flowers, where all he had to do was look back. The ball literally hit him in his back. All he had to do was turn around, and he didn't. He face guarded, and he picked up a bad pass interference on a third down on a bailout throw by Kirk Cousins. You give up the big 51-yarder, and like I said, many screens hurt you tonight. You kept seeing screens over and over again, and I'm like, when are you guys going to wake up and realize they're screening you to death? Stop rushing up the field and start backtracking your way to the running back. They never figured it out, and so the Vikings feasted off of the screen game tonight as well. So there's some chinks in the armor for the Seattle Seahawks on the defensive side of the football, and they lost Ziggy Ansah for what extent of time we'll see. Hopefully it's not that injured shoulder that he had surgery on in the offseason. Hopefully you saw him leave. I'm guessing it's a stinger. Again, I didn't sleep at a Holiday Inn last night. I'm no doctor, but looked like a stinger to me. Wasn't moving the entire right shoulder nor arm. And the angle in which he went into Madison looked like he kind of pinched a nerve up in that neck shoulder region. So if I had to guess, I'd say that's a stinger, and those things are hit or miss. It's similar to a concussion, but for your arm, shoulder region, where you don't know when you're going to get feeling back in that nerve. Just like with a concussion, you don't know when a guy's going to get out of the protocol and pass all of his baseline tests. With a stinger, all bets are off. You could be out 1 week, you could be out no weeks, you could be out for a month with a stinger. Or you could never get feeling back, as we saw with Kyshawn Jarrett. If you're a Redskins fan, you know what I'm talking about. So in any event, I thought that they did enough to win this football game, and this shouldn't have come as close as it did, though. That's the thing that I struggle with this Seattle Seahawks team, is that you really don't know what you're going to get from them from week to week. Last week, they had a dominant performance versus the Philadelphia Eagles, and everybody was doing that to the Eagles. They couldn't score. They didn't have anybody in that football game to play, and they shut them down and held them to 3 points. Well, for most of that game, 3 points. They ended up getting 9, a late touchdown in that ball game, but they shut them down for the most part, and the offense did just enough. They win that game. This week, you come back, you got a commanding 17-point lead at 34-17, and you damn near squander that. So I'm a little sketchy on their defense. However, they got it done. They win the football game. They're tied atop the NFC West division. They take first place via the tie break with the win over the 49ers, and so now you're at 10-2 in first place. Let's see if you can hold on to that lead. Got to go on the road and take care of the Rams next week. Not going to be easy. If you're the Minnesota Vikings, bitter pill to swallow here, because at 17-10 at halftime, you had to feel good about where you were in this game. And I felt like if you could just come out and get a defensive stop after you went, and really, you get the ball after halftime first. I felt like if you could just go down the field and get a field goal. I'm thinking, you got the momentum, got the field goal right before halftime, you're up a touchdown. You come out, you get the crowd on their sitting on their hands, get them quiet a little bit by moving the football. You get in the field goal range. It'd be even better if you could score a touchdown, but I'm not being greedy. Get 3 there, eat up 5 minutes of the third quarter clock, end in a field goal, go up 10, two-score game. You got to like your chances in that situation. Instead, you pretty much go 3 and out, punt the ball to Seattle. They take the football, ram it right down your throat, end up getting in the end zone. It's 17-all, and just like that, the floodgates kind of open. You get the Dalvin Cook fumble on the very next offensive snap. They get a field goal out of that. The next possession, you get the interception by Kirk, and they turn that into a touchdown. And then just like that, it's 34 to it's 7 to 17, and then you get stopped. They get the football back, and then it's a big play to David Moore. And now all of a sudden the floodgates have opened, and it's 34-17, and it seems like this game is about to get out of hand. And again, as I said earlier in the show, credit to Minnesota Vikings for hanging tough. This thing could have gotten ugly, and I thought it was going to get ugly. I thought we were one more Kirk Cousins hit, sack, forced fumble away from this thing turning into a 41-17 shellacking. But credit the Vikings, credit Kirk Cousins. They stayed the course. They made the plays. How about Kyle Rudolph with another nasty one-hand grab in the end zone? Did it against the Cowboys. He did it again tonight when they needed it most on that third down, and that got them within striking distance. Like I said, if they tacked on that extra point, I felt like this game could easily have gone to overtime. It changes the whole dynamics when you need a touchdown versus a field goal. And that last stretch, when they decided to go for it, you don't go for it there if you're down 3. You got 3 timeouts. You got the 2-minute warning. You punt that football. You try to get a stop, and you force them to punt it back to you. And you're going to get great field position because they're probably going to run it 3 times, or they're going to run it twice and try to throw it. Either way, if you get the stop that you need, you're going to get great field position back. And all you would then need, despite not having any timeouts, all you would need then is a field goal to tie. And so it changes the way you approach. Now you're down 4 instead of 3, and you can't essentially punt the football to them because, one, if you punt it to them and they get 1 first down, which is what they ultimately did, now you're not going to have any timeouts, and you're going to still have to drive the length of the field, even if they punt it back to you, and you're going to be deep in your own territory, most likely, even if they get that 1 first down, they punt it, next thing you know, you fair catch it, you're at your own 21, and now you got to go, 79 yards with no timeouts. It's just tough. So you go for it in that situation because you're down 4 instead of down 3. So it just changes the way everything it goes in that game. So, you need Dan Bailey to punch home that extra point, and he didn't, and it put you in a bind. But again, credit to the Vikings for hanging tough in the game when it looked like all was lost at 34-17. But the real issue for me with this team isn't the offense. The offense has been great. It sucks that Dalvin Cook got injured, and we'll find out the extent of that injury. Still got a quality back there in the backfield and Alexander Madison. So even if Cook is out for, let's say, 2 weeks, you feel good about Alexander Madison carrying the load. But the issue isn't offense. And you'll probably be getting Adam Thielen back next week, which is also going to be a boost for you. But that's not the issue, as I mentioned. The offense has been doing their part. They've been upholding their end of the bargain. It's been the defense. The defense was the reason you were trailing 20-0 at halftime versus the Denver Broncos. The defense is the reason the Packers scored 21 points in the first quarter and you weren't able to dig yourself out of that hole in the loss you had to the Green Bay Packers earlier in the season. The defense is the reason you lost tonight because you gave up 34 points. And yes, there were turnovers in there that did not help your cause, but they gave up a big play to David Moore. And despite getting the stop after the Cook fumble, they weren't able to get a stop after the Kirk Cousins interception. And they were the reason you weren't able to get the football back with less than, and the fumble at the end, inconsequential. They weren't going to do anything with it at that point. You're down 7, whatever the case may be. But you get a stop there. You don't give up a first down. You get a stop there. You get the football back at the 2-minute warning, essentially, with a timeout left. I mean, this defense just couldn't stop the run tonight. This defense couldn't make the plays when the plays needed to be made. And that's my problem with Minnesota. It's why I don't believe in them. All right. Another rough night for Xavier Rhodes. And I'm not going to put that touchdown on him. He was expecting help. And I think what really was supposed to happen was Harrison Smith was supposed to bluff the blitz and then get his ass all the way back and kind of confuse Russell Wilson. And he just kind of hung around, saw a guy coming out in the flats, got nosy, and for whatever reason, he didn't get back. And Xavier Rhodes was looking like he expected help to the inside. It wasn't there. You give up a touchdown. But bottom line is this defense, not what they used to be in Minnesota. And that's why I'm not fully confident that they can get the job done. And, oh, by the way, the special teams, a little shaky as well. You just don't know what you're going to get from Dan Bailey from week to week. 1 week he can go 5 of 5 from field goals and 2 extra points. And then another week he can go 3 of 5 and miss an extra point. And you're just like, what the hell, Dan? So bottom line is this is a team that I'm still skeptical on. But if you ask me, are they one of the best 6 teams in the NFC? I will tell you absolutely they are, and they deserve to be in the postseason. But deserve and getting in are 2 different things. Do the Cowboys or any team from the NFC East, for that matter, deserve to be in the playoffs? No. But are they going to get in? You betcha. So someone's going to be on the outside looking in. And if the Vikings don't clean up their act, it'll be them on the outside looking in, and the Rams will gladly take their spot. I don't see it happening. I see the Vikings having 3 out of their final 4 at home. They get the Bears. I think that's a winnable game at the crib. They get the Lions. That's a winnable game at the crib. They get the Packers. That is a winnable game at the crib. And they may have like the Cardinals or somebody else sprinkled in there. A very winnable game, whomever it is. Bottom line is, I see the Cardinals or the Vikings being in great shape to try to make the postseason, and I think they will ultimately do that. The question isn't whether they're going to make the postseason. I think the question really is, are they going to win the NFC North division? That I do not think they are going to do, but we will see. So, with that being said, let's get to your comments and see what you have to say. Niners fan says, damn it, Lou. Right when we needed the Vikes to pull out a dub, their defense chokes. Now we need the Rams to do us a favor next week. I always say, you want something done right, better do it yourself. Don't rely on anybody else to help you do what you need done for yourself. You had a chance to take care of business at home. You squandered that opportunity. Now you're probably going to have to go to Seattle week 17 and handle this yourself. Like I said at the top of the show, good luck. You're going to need it. The 20th Mike says, dang, Kirk Cousins hasn't won the Monday night game yet. 8th straight loss. Shaking my head. I don't think the Vikings are quite there yet. Good team, but needs something. I'd agree with that. I'd agree. And I think that needs something probably exists on the defensive side of the football. Captain Spartan 04 says, didn't get to watch the game, studying for finals. Good luck with that, by the way. Did Russell Wilson help his case for MVP? I kind of answered that already. He didn't hurt himself. He just didn't. I said he needed 2 flag staking games where he sticks his flag in the MVP ground and says, hey, I'm here. All right. He needed 2 of those, and he had 2 opportunities, tonight and on Sunday night. And I think tonight was just a solid Russell Wilson performance, but not the kind that moves the needle. Let's see. Niners fan says, I have to say, Lou, this loss was clearly not on Kirk. He balled out. That defense was absolutely garbage. Yet, you get people like JP saying Cousins chokes again, which, you know, they want to do that. If you're a Redskins fan, you take solace in knowing that Kirk hasn't won on Monday night and that he didn't get it done. Well, guess what? Kirk Cousins wasn't the reason they lost this game. Newsflash, which is what I've been trying to tell Redskins fans for a very long time. When he was in Washington, a lot of times when we would lose games, Kirk Cousins wasn't the reason we lost the game. And a lot of times this season when they've lost, Kirk Cousins not the reason that they lost the game. So I'm with you on that one, Niners fan. The defense is more to blame than anyone else for the loss tonight. Reese says, the only solution at this point to the MVP race is co-MVPs. I've never seen such a tight race. Usually one guy pulls away. I think Lamar is currently doing that. I mean, and you know what's sad is that Russ, for the first 8 games of the season or so, was the clear-cut favorite for MVP. And then it seemed like out of nowhere, here comes Lamar Jackson. But it wasn't out of nowhere. He had been playing good football, and it just got into the public consciousness. And then it's like once he got on that radar, he just took off. And that Monday night game was the start of him pretty much getting even. And you know the saying, you know the motto, even leaving. He got even with Russ. And I think with the Texans game, that is. He got even with Russ, 41-7 over the Texans, where he was dominant. He got even with Russ. And then he left him on that Monday night game versus the Rams. And I don't think he's going to look back. So I would not have a problem with co-MVPs. I just don't see it going that way. JP says, what a game this was. This wasn't like last week when the Ravens demolished the Rams and the game was over by halftime. And I thought that's where we were heading in the early stages of the fourth. I said, man, this thing is about to get out of control, and it's a damn shame because the Vikings were right there. But credit to the Vikings, as I've said numerous times tonight, credit to the Vikings for hanging tough and making this a ball game. And credit the offense for changing the tempo. And credit their offensive coordinator for not abandoning what had worked earlier in the game, which was the screen game, and kind of keeping the Seahawks off balance. And I thought they did some really good things, did the Vikings offensively. Unfortunately, they just came up a little short. JP says, this Vikings defense is definitely missing something. What do you think it is? Honestly speaking, I don't think they get any interior pressure on the quarterback because I think they have very talented edge rushers, especially Danielle Hunter, but I don't think they're getting any pressure from the interior. I don't think they're getting anybody to collapse the pocket. I think they're getting ho-hum performances from their defensive tackles, and I think they need a stud there that will start to collapse the pocket a bit and run that quarterback right into the likes of Danielle Hunter or Everson Griffin. And so I think that's where the issue is. Look, the back end isn't great, but the easiest way to fix the back end is to get pressure on the quarterback. It's much easier to do it that way than to say, all right, we need to fix this guy, fix that guy, fix that guy. And honestly, you could just point fingers at Xavier Rhodes. But as I've mentioned before, it's not just Xavier Rhodes. You saw the miscommunication between he and Harrison Smith. That's not all on Xavier Rhodes. And that's what I'm talking about. It's a collective effort back there as to why they're not getting the job done. And so this right now is a Vikings defense that I don't think gets enough pressure on the quarterback. Danielle Hunter is a one-man show, essentially. He's got 9.5 sacks. He may have 10.5. I don't know if he came into the game with 9.5 or was it 8.5, but he got a sack in this game. Either way, he's the one guy that you look to get pressure on the quarterback. If he doesn't, then I don't see another guy up there that I'm really that afraid of. You know, if Everson Griffin turns back the hands of time a bit in any given game, he could be a guy that could be a little worrisome. But to be honest with you, after you get past Everson or Danielle Hunter, not many guys scare you on that front for the Minnesota Vikings. And so I think that's one of the issues that they're having right now, especially on the interior of their defensive line. Azad Belial says, who's had the bigger drop-off, Xavier Rhodes or Josh Norman? I really think the bigger drop-off was with Rhodes because Norman was never looked at as a shutdown corner. I think Norman was looked at as a playmaker. Even in that season he had with Carolina before he ended up in Washington, where he had all the interceptions and all of those things, he still, in my eyes, was a zone corner, a cover 3 corner that had tremendous ball skills and a penchant for poking the football free with the peanut punch. But never did I once think or say out loud or feel like this was a guy you could lock up man to man. And that's where the Redskins went wrong because they made Norman out to be something that he wasn't, which was a man-to-man lockdown defender. He was never that in Carolina. He was a zone defender that keyed quarterbacks' eyes and made plays on the football. And that's where he's at his best, where he's able to look at the quarterback, similar to Dick Sherman. You know, they're very similar football players. But I think Dick Sherman understands his limitations a little bit better than Josh Norman does. Norman wants to come up, play press, but don't put hands on the receiver and then try to bail at the last second like he's got that kind of speed. Dick Sherman's not coming up in your face and deleting the airspace unless he's going to lay hands on you. He's going to disrupt the timing of your route because he's not trying to run with this 4-3, 4-4 dude. All right? I'm going to make sure I'm going to stay in your hip pocket because I'm going to put hands on you. Well, Norman's not putting hands on you. So guys are running by him, and Norman, it doesn't have that kind of speed. And well, neither does Dick Sherman, but you know what Dick Sherman knows how to do? I'm either going to stay on top of your ass, I'm going to stay back 7 yards off and stay deeper than the deepest. All right, anything that happens is going to be in front of me. Or I'm going to come up, line of scrimmage, and I'm going to lay hands on you. I'm going to bless you. All right, I'm going to put that anointing oil on you, boy, because I'm going to touch you. Well, that's not what Norman does. So to me, the bigger drop-off is Xavier Rhodes because he was locked down. Xavier Rhodes, man, zone, it don't matter. All right? Old school, new school need to know though. You know, he burned, baby, burned like Disco Inferno. He was lighting dudes up over there. Roads was closed. There was cones on the ground. You can't go in that lane. Now, all of a sudden, it's free traffic over there, man. HOV lane. That's free money over there. You ain't even got to pay. +2, you can go. Much faster than slow on 29. So, that road is open. All right? And it once was closed. So, looks like the construction is over. Roads are and lanes are clear. Do what you want to do over there. So I think the bigger drop off is Xavier Rhodes. Because Josh Norman was never regarded as the best corner in football. Rhodes, at one point, there was a discussion to be had that he was the best corner in football. That's no longer the case. It's not even close to being the case. Niners fan says, Lou, we have to win out now. We've got the Saints, and that's on the road. He says, home for the Falcons, home for the Rams, and at Seattle. I know this team is up for the challenge, but it's going to be really tough. Yes, it is. Kyle Little says, do you see 3 teams coming out of the NFC West with this Vikings loss? Very possible, highly unlikely. I still see the Vikings because if you looked at their schedule, and I just told you, they got all 3 of their games in the division versus Chicago, Detroit, and Green Bay, all at the crib, okay? So this is a team that has already won on the road and played all of their divisional games on the road, which is rare that they do it this way. All your divisional games on the road, front-loaded, and now you go on the back end of your schedule, and you've got all these home games against teams in the division. And so I expect them to take care of business. As a matter of fact, I think the Vikings are undefeated at home this season, if I'm not mistaken. Don't quote me on that, but they lost at Green Bay. They lost at Kansas City. They lost at Seattle. And they lost at Chicago. So, yeah, their home record is 5-0 right now. And I don't see that changing. I don't see them losing at the crib. So, we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. Darth Vader BI says, do you think they should have ran it on that 3rd and 3 or even the 4th down? I don't second guess their decisions. I know what you're saying. If Dalvin Cook were in the game, I think it would have turned out totally different. He would have been an option to throw the football to. They might have even run it with him. I thought if you know you're going for it on 4th down, I always like the decision to run it on 3rd down. Just because, the worst case scenario is you gain a yard or 2 and now it's 4th and 1. Anything to make it easier. They knew they were going for it on 4th down at that point. And if you know that, then run it on 3rd down. And so I wouldn't have had a problem with a run on 3rd down, not on 4th down. Azad Bilal says, after watching this game as a Packers fan, I'm not worried at all at the Vikings. We should win this division pretty easily with our schedule. I'm just not sold on Minnesota beating us. I don't know. I told you I feel like the Packers are going to win the division. I said that before, and I'll reiterate that. And as you mentioned, Packers have a very soft schedule down the stretch. Very doable games. I know they got the Redskins this week. I think they have the Bears in week 17, and I think they have the Lions in week number 15. So, and then they got the Vikings in 16. I'm guessing. Don't quote me on that. But in any event, they got a very doable schedule. The Lions are dead now. The Redskins stink, and I think they can take the Vikings in Minnesota. I don't think they will, but I don't think that game is going to determine the division because I think Minnesota is going to lose another game somewhere in there. Even though I think they can win their games at home, I'd like to know who that other road game is. If it's Arizona, they're going to win that game too. So maybe they do win the division. I don't know. We'll see what happens. It's going to be tough to go into Minnesota and win, though. The Vikings or the Packers are very capable of doing that, however. Niners fan says, Lou, we are fully capable of going into Seattle and winning that football game. I know it's going to be prime time, but we are the better football team. I don't know. You had your chance. I'm just telling you, they're a different animal at home, and they're beatable. This isn't like the old Seattle teams where you had no chance going into Seattle. Like, they're beatable, but I like I said, I always take my chances with Seattle at the crib on primetime television. They're as close as a sure thing as you can get at home on prime time. So I hear you though. I hear you. JP says, when are the Seahawks gonna put Shaq Griffin on the starting defense? All they do is put him on special teams. Well, he gets snaps on the Kirk Cousins incomplete pass that was initially ruled a fumble. He was the one that knocked it backwards. So he gets in the game on defense. He gets opportunities. He gets snaps. But they don't see him as a starting caliber player. Azad Bilal says, what running back duo do you like better? Aaron Jones, Jamal Williams, or Chris Carson, Rashad Penny? I find this super close. Excuse me. I prefer the two in Green Bay. Now, this is why. Because they can catch the football. Both of them are threats out of the backfield to receive the ball. Carson is more of a first and second down back, even though they use him on third downs, but not necessarily as a receiver, but more of a guy that can, do a solid job in pass pro. Rashad Penny is more of the guy that can catch it out of the backfield as a receiver. But I just think the two in Green Bay are a little bit more well-rounded. But if you're asking me individually, Aaron Jones is the best back out of that entire conglomerate. When he's on, he's as dynamic as any of them. However, I think Carson and Penny are both better than Jamal Williams. So, for whatever it's worth, I'd take the Green Bay Packer running backs, but it's, as you mentioned, very, very close. JP says, is Metcalf slowly winning you over? JP, you're late, bro. I did a video already issuing DK Metcalf a 00. He's already won me over. I've already apologized. I've already offered up a 00. JP says, Vikings desperately need Thielen back before the season is over. He'll be back sooner rather than later. He says, do you have any Booger McFarland or Joe Tessitore rants for us today? Nah, not tonight. Protect Sports says, bro, great game, but they better hope Dalvin Cook's injury isn't serious. You're right. He's such a big part of their offense. He's their version of Christian McCaffrey. As he goes, so does that offense. So I don't think it's going to be anything serious, but I do think he's going to miss some time behind that injury. JP says, props to Cook for trying to play through a separated shoulder. That was an Iron Man moment right there. Captain Spartan 04 says, Vikings have always been missing a compliment to Harrison Smith, in my opinion. If they get Carl Joseph in free agency, that could definitely bring the fear back to the defense. 2 hitmans. Garrick Buckmaster says, the Vikings really need Dalvin to be healthy. I think most of us agree with that sentiment. Tracy Cooper says, it's crazy seeing how short a unit offense defense window is. Kind of watching Rhodes and the safety number 22 lose a step. Oops, didn't mean to do that. Seems like he's saying Harrison Smith and Rhodes have lost a step. I don't know if I would agree with that assessment, but there are windows in this league where you have to take advantage. I talked about that on my podcast with like a team like Chicago, which is the time frame and the timeline that they have with the team and where they are and where Mitchell Trubisky is in his development don't kind of sync up with one another. And that's where you can run into some issues with the team trying to rush a quarterback along. And that's where you can run into some problems with the development of a quarterback because you need to win now, and that quarterback may not be ready to take you where you ultimately need to go. And then you got these contracts that are expiring and guys that rookie deals are going to be up, and you can't pay everybody. That's why you got to win in that window. Like Seattle, for instance. They had to win in that window, and Russell got it done relatively quickly. In his second year, they won a Super Bowl, went back. In his third year, should have won back-to-back Super Bowls. But they had to win in his rookie contract window because once that was up, you knew you were going to start seeing some of these guys either move on because you can't pay everybody, or in the case of a Cam Chancellor, have an injury that shortens a career. So, got to win in these windows. You generally don't know how long a window you have, but in certain instances, it's not but so long. So, anyway, Gregory Lightbody says, I can't believe the Skins develop Kirk and the Vikings get the benefits. Well, so what happens when you have a foolish organization. Niners fan says, that was a masterful 2-minute drive at the end of the half by Kirk. Yes, Yes, it was. Captain Spartan 04 says, just so you know, I don't feel confident about my Steelers. Here you go. And you've been Nostradamus when it comes to your Steelers playing lesser opponents. You always tell me, hey, we're going to lose this week. Or, hey, this game's going to be really close. I don't trust my team this week. So you're making me nervous by telling me this. He said, typical game we lose against lesser competition. I know this isn't your rep, your squad, but I wasn't here for it. Garrett Buckmaster says, Rhodes is hurting this defense badly. He's been really bad. Yes. Yes, he has. Gregory Lightbody says, why were you upset about Fred Warner? We still drafted Holcomb in the 5th. Because Cole Holcomb is not Fred Warner. And that's why you're laughing, because you're trying to troll me here. And I'm not going to fall for the banana in the tailpipe. Fred Warner is a different animal. We don't have a Fred Warner currently on our roster. I don't even know if Reuben Foster is Fred Warner. That's how good Fred Warner is, and people don't really understand just how good of a football player Fred Warner really is. But anyway, Derek B says, you're right about all the screen passes. The Seahawks must have given up over 200 yards on screen passes and checkdowns. Early in the first quarter, even into the first half, Kirk hadn't thrown a pass over 5 yards. It wasn't until that 2-minute drive where he started to open up and throw it down the field. His first pass of over 5 yards came with like a minute and 41 seconds left in the first half. So they were killing him on the screen game, killing him on the underneath stuff. And that's one thing I've always admired about Kirk Cousins, is that he takes what the defense gives him. He's not going to force it, which you see that reflected in his numbers this year with the low interceptions to touchdown ratio, that he's not forcing it. Okay, you're going to play back. You're going to give me this check down. And he started to develop that with Chris Thompson in Washington. And now he's carried that over with Dalvin Cook. You're going to give me the check down. I'll take 8 on this check down. 2nd and 2. Oh, you're going to give me this quick out? I'll take 5 in a first down. Move the sticks. So if that's what you're going to give him, he'll take it. RWF1984 says, great game. As a Vikings fan, can't be mad. Definitely can't blame Kirk for this either. But roads have remained open since 2018. Yes. Yes, they have. Captain Spartan 04 says, if there's one thing that's for sure, whenever Melvin Gordon goes in free agency, Trey Waynes will follow. They grew up together in Wisconsin and been longtime friends, documented back in 15. We'll see. He says, documentary back in 15. Interesting. RWF1984 says, well, that miscommunication for roles just shows that great cohesiveness that defense has by retaining. Yeah. and generally it shows up. It didn't there. But when you keep players together, they usually know what the other is going to do, and you don't get those kind of defensive breakdowns. Stephen Ellis says, on Kirk's interception, do you think the DB got there early? Because I felt like he did, regardless, very well played game by the Hawks. I actually thought it was pass interference, personally. That's just me. Thought he was there early. He was there often. But he grabbed him at the top of the route, the stem of the route. So that allowed him to pull himself back into the play. Then he grabbed him again to get really into the play. And I thought he just kind of disrupted everything in that play. But as you heard John Perry, the referee, say that they have in the booth, the former official, a good play by the defender, not enough there to overturn, which it would not have been. It would have stand, so no need to waste your challenge. And they didn't flag it on the field. I like when they let them play. Personally, I'm glad they didn't throw a flag there. I'd much rather see them let the players play than to throw flags for every damn thing. That's why I love that officiating crew that we saw tonight. Not a lot of flags tonight, all right? Not a lot of flags at all. Smooth game. Not a lot of stoppages, other than Seattle burning all 3 of their timeouts throughout the 3rd and 4th quarter, well before the game was over. That could have come back to haunt them. But not a lot of stoppages in this game. Outside of injuries and timeouts being squandered, weren't a lot of flags on the field tonight. So love the way this game was officiated. JP says, where the hell was Clowney tonight? Clowney played well. Clowney was disruptive, as he always is. He was getting constantly double-teamed, had a big stop down by the goal line, even though the Vikings ultimately got the touchdown. I thought Clowney was effective tonight. And that's the problem with people that aren't paying attention. You just look up, you don't see Clowney with 3 sacks or, 5 tackles for loss. Oh my God, where's Clowney? Clowney was impactful. JP says, not going to lie, I thought it was frustrating to see Kirk not complete that pass on 4th and 3. If he just had thrown it a few inches closer to Irv Smith's hands, he keeps that drive alive. I don't know. Akeem King was on his back. I don't know if that's a catch, even if it's close to Irv Smith there. Cody Otter says, what's with Diggs' hands tonight? 3 drops. Yeah, he had some issues. He was out of sync early in the game, was Stephon Diggs. Gregory Lightbody says, I want Kendall Fuller back or at least Byron Jones in free agency. Good luck with that. JP says, Lockett was nowhere to be seen tonight. If Russ had gotten him more involved, that game is easily out of reach because he's so dangerous with the football in his hands in the open field. JP also says, Rose is really falling off this year. How much longer does he have in Minnesota before Zimmer gets sick of him? This could be it for him. Gregory Lightbody says, you know what sucks more if you weren't going to pay him than trade him for the Niners. Well, they didn't want to do business with that. That was the Redskins being petty. You know that. JP says 0-8 on Monday night is not a good look for Cousins at all. He's got to win one at some point, though. Eventually he will. But 0-8, definitely not a good look. Captain Spartan 04 says, should the Vikings target one of these Panthers defensive tackles? You good? Gerald McCoy, Vernon Butler, Kyle Love, all free agents, Dontari Poe, and Short also could probably be available too. Personally, if I'm the Vikings, I'd like to go get my own cut of beef, a fresh cut of beef. It has nothing wrong with aged beef. That stuff gets, it gets done, but it's a little tough. It's not as tender. Go get your own cut of fresh grade A prime choice beef out of the draft. I'm pretty sure there'll be plenty of guys that are impactful. They'll be drafting probably late stages of the first round. Get you a nice cut of beef back into the first round. That's how I would play it, but we'll see. We'll see. RWF 1984 says the last road game for Minnesota, it's the Chargers. That's not easy. It's going to be a home game, actually. So you don't have any road games left. That'll actually be a Vikings home game. If you travel with any kind of clout, that's a home game. Now, the Chargers are Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. You don't know what Chargers team is going to show up. If you don't show up and show out, that could easily be a loss. You're probably going to win that game, though. Azad Bilal says the Vikings go to L.A. to take on the Chargers in Week 15 on Sunday Night Football. I think that's the game that got flexed out of that spot. It's now going to be Bills at Steelers. So you're right. That is the game that was supposed to be on Sunday Night Football. JP says Seahawks and Niners are in a fight to the finish in the NFC West, and I think the winner will be decided when they play each other the final week of the season. Man, Darth Vader, B.I., I am so sorry for that. I wish I could undo that. I did not mean to do that to you. And I don't know how to reverse it. Sorry, guy. You didn't do anything wrong. I don't want you to think. So hopefully you watch this back. Hopefully you didn't leave. But I'm sorry. I don't know why the hell that happened. I apologize. JP says the NFC North is going to come down to the wire. Green Bay and Minnesota face each other Week 16, I believe that they do. Let's see. Reese says, what do you think of the Seattle Seahawks uniforms? I didn't have a problem with them. I didn't have a problem with them at all. I've always liked that neon green. So I didn't have a problem with them at all. Anyway, that is it. That is all. Thank you guys for joining me. This was actually a really good game, especially considering that the Vikings at one point were down 17 at 34-17 in this game and rallied back to make this a 4-point game. Should have been a 3-point game. Missed extra point, I thought, changed the whole dynamics of the game. But nonetheless, they had their opportunity, had the ball back, down 4 with a chance to go down and make something of it. Weren't able to do it and weren't able to get the stop to get the football back as the Seattle Seahawks hold on for the 7-point victory, 37-30 in this ball game. And they get it done, go to 10-2 on the season. And the importance of this game is 2 things. One, head-to-head, if they end up tied with Seattle or with Minnesota somehow, some way, and they don't win the division, and they're jockeying for a 5th, 6th seed, that could make a huge difference, you know. Somebody, I'm telling you right now, I want the 5th seed. Of all the teams in the playoffs, I want to go and play the Dallas Cowboys or the Philadelphia Eagles. And yes, the Cowboys are talented, okay? Don't get it twisted. But I would much rather take my chances going to Dallas or to Philadelphia to play the 4 seed than to have to go play the 3 seed. Whoever the hell it ends up being, you know? Whether that's New Orleans, San Francisco, or, you know, Green Bay. So, this is a big game. It was a big game, big win. You're 10-2 now, puts you in first place. Now you're out of the wild card discussion for the time being and into the number 2 seed in the NFC playoffs with this win and home field advantage, a first round bye. I mean, these games down the stretch are going to be massive. One slip up could have you as a 5th seed on the road in wild card weekend. So a lot at stake for these teams moving forward. For the Vikings, tough, bitter pill to swallow. Lose this football game after leading at halftime 17-10. You give up, 24 unanswered points in the second half, fall down by 17, only to rally back, cut the deficit to as little as 4 before falling 37-30. You're now 8-4 in the season. Missed an opportunity to knot it up at 9-3 atop the division with the Green Bay Packers. Instead, you fall back a full game in that division. Luckily enough for you, you don't play a road game the rest of the season. And so if you continue to take care of business at home, go over to Los Angeles in week 15, turn that into a home game, you could easily run the table, go 12-4, and all of a sudden you're in not only winning the division, that 12-4 could be good enough to get you a first round bye. I'm just saying, keep in mind, Seattle and San Francisco have to play each other. Somebody's got to lose that game. If they both lose a game, somebody's going to end up with a 4th loss. I'm just saying New Orleans has to play San Francisco. I mean, this thing could get really convoluted quickly. You take care of business down the stretch. The Saints lose to the 49ers, but the 49ers lose to, the Rams, and then the 49ers beat the Seahawks. I mean, it could get ugly, man. It could get messy, man. Yeah. So just take care of business down the stretch. We'll see what happens. Anyway, I'm your man, Louie T. Thank you for joining me here on Monday Night Football Overtime. Seahawks get it done. Remain unbeaten at home. They haven't lost at home this season, have they? Let's see. They're 10-2. Their 2 losses were, who did they lose to? Yep, they lost to the Ravens at home. So that's settled. Anyway, I'm your man, Louie T. Signing off. Remember, it's not your man, Louie T. It's not the best NFL coverage. It could be. You guys continue to join me. Make sure you like this video. Subscribe to the Louie T Network if you haven't already done so. Also, check out the Louie T Network podcast. If you haven't been doing that, shame on you. Check that out. That's available on Google Music Play, Spotify, Stitcher, Apple Podcasts, TuneIn, and of course the website, louietnetwork.net. I'm out of here. Adios. You guys have a good one. Thanks again for joining me. Take care.